Hi guys and girls, I'm Obsidian Ant and welcome back to Elite Dangerous. So, fleet carriers are now on the way and will be available on the beta servers from next week for PC users starting on the 7th of April. Today, Frontier revealed a whole load of details on how fleet carriers will actually function and what players will be able to do with them. So, let's dive right in and take a look at that. First up, already you will have seen the carrier jump sequence playing out in the video right here. And as you all already noticed, it's pretty much the same jump sequence currently used by capital class ships. As we already know, the carrier has a jump range of up to 500 light years, and the carrier requires a fuel source called tritium. This can be mined from ice asteroids, or alternatively, it can be purchased from space stations with refinery economies. Each carrier has a fuel depot where players, that's both the carrier owner as well as other people, can actually go ahead and deposit tritium in order to fuel the carrier's jumps. So basically, this means that refueling the carrier can be a collective effort if players so choose. Now, in order to initiate a jump, carrier owners can select a destination via the Galaxy Map option, which is built into the carrier's interface menus. There's two ways of initiating a jump, first by choosing a specific system on the Galaxy Map, and if you choose this option, the carrier will appear in orbit around a body within the chosen system. If, however, you want your carrier to orbit a specific body within the destination system, then you can do this by using the system map from the station UI and selecting a specific planet or moon. And as another note here, carriers are completely unable to jump into permit-locked systems. They cannot do this even if the carrier owner holds a permit for the system. As for when a carrier can jump, well, a carrier can jump whenever a player chooses, just so long as the carrier has enough fuel. The jump drive takes 1 hour to charge and another hour to cool down once the jump is complete, so this means that the carrier can jump once every 2 hours. Further, carriers gain wear and tear costs for each jump. The repairs for this must be paid for in credits and are added to the maintenance costs during the weekly server maintenance. I will go into more on these upkeep costs on the carrier further into the video. So, all of the jump information out of the way, what precisely do carriers bring to the game? Well, let's go into that. First up, carriers cost 5 billion credits, as we already know, and players can own a single carrier. If you want to purchase a carrier, you can pick one up from certain space stations dotted around inhabited space. Now, not all space stations will sell a carrier. The ones that do have a special dry dock located outside of them that is used for construction of the carriers. Once you've made the purchase, the carrier will appear in the nearest available system orbiting a moon or planet, so the dry dock outside is more of a visual cue rather than one that actually physically functions. Now further, the carrier construction facilities also offer the ability to outfit your carrier with additional modules and services, more on that in just a moment. Players also have a lot of control over the carriers, and this includes the ability to prevent other players with notoriety from docking. Meanwhile, the carriers have 16 landing pads, and this is comprised of 8 large, 4 medium and 4 small. Now, one of the biggest questions surrounding carriers is the subject of upkeep, and it's been a hot topic lately. That is, the ongoing running costs of the carriers. So to get straight to the bottom line here, and the subject most people are going to want to know the most about, yes, fleet carriers can and will get decommissioned if you don't maintain the upkeep costs. These upkeep costs are a weekly cost that is deducted from the carrier's bank each week, a bank which the players must fund. If there are no funds in the carrier's bank, then it will go into debt. Once the debt is high enough, and Frontier don't give a number for this or a time period, but once there is enough debt, the carrier will start losing access to optional additional services run on board. If the debt is paid off, then these services will reactivate. However, if the debt continues to grow, and Frontier specifically state this, you can continue to accrue debt for a number of weeks, but once it exceeds a set limit, you'll be given a week to resolve your finances or lose the carrier permanently. If this happens, the carrier will be shut down and the owner will be notified that the carrier has been decommissioned and can no longer be recovered. If this happens, then the player will be reimbursed a percentage of the carrier's current value, and this value will be negatively affected by the carrier's service time as well as the distance from the nearest construction dock. There's no details on precisely what percentage of costs will be reimbursed to the players. Now this is obviously a significant issue, and I know it's something a lot of people are not going to be too happy about, and in principle it's something I don't agree with either. But that said, I'm willing to wait and see what the actual upkeep costs are. If they're low enough, then it's not really a significant issue. For example, if it's just a few million credits a week and it takes maybe 1 billion credits to go into debt, then you're not going to go into significant debt and lose a carrier anytime soon. On the other hand, if the upkeep is 100 million credits per week and it only takes 200 million credits to go into a decommissioned state, then obviously this is a far greater issue. And of course, there's a whole wide range of options in between all of that. And without knowing all the details as to the costs here and the timescale, it really is difficult to come to any sort of reasonable conclusion. So we won't really know the fundamentals of this until we get access to the beta, and even then it's highly possible that Frontier would change and rejig the prices. So ultimately, we're just going to have to see. But as I say, as a matter of principle, I'm not a big fan of mechanics, game mechanics, that kind of force you back to the game. A player really shouldn't be punished as far as I'm concerned for not being able to play or not being willing to play. There is some grey area though, depending on if those upkeep costs are actually low enough. Whilst it's unclear why Frontier have chosen to decommission unused carriers, it does make some sense however that the game doesn't need loads of ghost carriers floating around being unused, just out there basically being useless. At any rate, I want to keep this video purely about revealed details at the moment, and I'll be going into my thoughts and opinions on all of these details in a follow-up video, which will be released very soon, so do keep an eye out for that. Meanwhile, if Frontier reveal more details or have a change of heart regarding this, I will post those details in a pinned comment below this video. Now, on a related note, players will also be able to choose to decommission their own carrier. And once this happens, the carrier will go into a pending decommission state, which will last about a week. During this period, the decommissioning status can be cancelled. The same rules apply that owners will get a percentage back on the current value of the carrier. During the decommissioning phase, all stored modules and ships can still be transferred, and this includes modules and ships stored by other players. After the carrier is decommissioned, all ships and modules will be automatically transferred to the nearest station with a carrier construction service. So, with that news out of the way, you may have noticed me mention a few specific details such as a carrier bank and carrier services. Let's take a closer look at that. Carriers then, as mentioned, have ongoing running costs. These are made up from a number of different factors, which include both services and crew that can be added and removed via the carrier management service at carrier construction stations. In short, carriers have a crew, and the crew must be paid. Each additional service requires additional crew, therefore increasing operating costs. Services includes core services and additional optional services. Also, fleet carriers have a bank. The funds in the bank are used to fund the carrier. The carrier owner has the ability to add services to the carrier. These services can be accessed by players able to dock at the carrier, and whilst players will have to pay a fee for these services, some of this money will go to the carrier owner and be deposited into the carrier's bank. Services are broadly broken into two categories. Core services. These include the basic functions of the carrier, such as the fuel depot, a commodities market, and the carrier management screen. The commodities market can be stocked by the carrier owner, who can then make a profit on commodities sold. I assume it's also possible for players to sell commodities to the carrier, although that hasn't specifically been detailed. The optional services are more specific and allow players to customize the character to their own needs. These services can be added and changed via the carrier administration services at certain stations. Additional services can be paused at any time in order to reduce running costs. However, each additional service has an installation cost as well as a weekly running cost. I do believe you'll need to pay the crew for each of these services a retainer, even if you do pause the service. These services can be removed by selling them back to the station, for which you'll get a reduced cost back. So what do these additional services actually include? Well, quite a few things actually. There's a redemption officer. From here you can sell bonds, trade dividends, bounties, as well as power play and codex vouchers. Advanced maintenance grants access to repair, refuel and armory. Outfitting grants access to the outfitting screen. Carrier owners will have to purchase the modules that are stocked on board the carrier, and modules are not purchased individually, instead they are purchased in blocks. What this means, for example, is that you purchase a block of shield upgrades or a block of weapons, and this will then be available in a variety of module sizes and quantities of that particular type. Players will be able to purchase these from your carrier, and you'll be able to gain a profit from the sale of these. The Shipyard allows carrier owners to purchase and stock ships. These ships are purchased in blocks of ship type. For example, cargo ships would include a set of Type 6, 7 and 9 vessels. A carrier owner can only purchase a limited stock of ships for sale. However, players will be able to buy them from your carrier, and you in turn will be able to make a profit. So here's another interesting detail. Carriers have a limited space on board. Shipyards and outfitting will deduct from the available space. Also, in an interesting twist here, because it's something Frontier have been reluctant to do in the past, it will now be possible for players to store commodities and items in an inventory space available only to the carrier owner. So if you have a few hundred tons of something that you really don't want to carry around, you'll now be able to store that somewhere. Frontier did say, however, that there will be some limitations here, as certain items won't be able to be stored for gameplay reasons. Carriers also include a black market, and this will allow players to buy and sell illegal goods. On the subject of illegal activities, carriers will be subjected to security patrols by forces located within the current system. If your carrier conducts a lot of illegal activities, then there's chances are that the authorities within the star system will create a heightened level of security around your carrier. A carrier will have its own security rating with each of the superpowers, and this will change over time depending upon the activities the carrier conducts. So, all of these services have a maintenance fee associated with them, and that is where the running costs for the carrier actually comes from. It's possible that, just maybe, players will be able to make a profit from these carriers, but with hundreds of other players attempting to do the same thing, generating a profit might not be easy. But that said, there will still be plenty of options for how players may decide to use the carriers, for example parking them next to a well-used ring system and offering a convenient way for players to sell their mined goods. Again though, these types of spots might be limited and there might be a lot of competition there. Carriers also have a few other features. For example, it will be possible to fire and rehire your crew, although it's not clear what benefit this would actually have. Pinned engineering blueprints will also be accessible via the carrier, and of course there is the livery screen, which will allow you to add cosmetics to your carrier. Some other additional visual customization can be done with some changes to the UI, which will reflect the type of services your carrier offers, and this can be done via the menu that will allow you to set your carrier to a specific type of activity. For example, that activity might be piracy, anti-xeno, mining, or indeed a number of others. Players will be able to see the carrier's activity type before docking. So that pretty much covers everything revealed so far about fleet carriers. Now Frontier did state that there is more to carriers, but as to just how much more, there's no real telling. Now that said, I do have a few additional details. The carrier details were sent over to me prior to the official live stream, and this gave me the opportunity to ask Frontier some questions, so here are those questions, along with the answers to them. Here we go then. How many carriers can orbit a single body? It depends on how much space is available around that body, but there is an upper limit. Some can't fit any fleet carriers, whilst others can fit many. If there are multiple carriers in a star system, how do we select which to instance with? Fleet carriers are persistent in the galaxy across all game modes, and you can travel to them using the galaxy and system maps similar to a starport. So that would seem to suggest that all carriers are visible at all times regardless. What happens to other commanders if they are logged out whilst docked on the fleet carrier when it jumps? If they are docked in the fleet carrier, they will jump with it. If they are not docked, they won't jump with the fleet carrier, so pretty straightforward there, very simple. Is it possible for the fleet carrier owner to be docked on board the fleet carrier when it jumps, so that you can travel to the 500 light years with the carrier? Yes, not only can the owner be docked, but visitors can also dock and jump along with you. And just to clarify that this actually works when you're logged in as well, I asked, can other commanders be docked and logged in on the fleet carrier when it jumps? As stated above, commanders who are docked, logged in or out will jump with the fleet carrier. Will a fleet carrier's trade market affect the background simulation in the star system it is situated? No, a fleet carrier's market will not affect the BGS of a system it's situated in. Using the carrier's shipyard, can you transfer some or all of your ships into it? If not, how do you get your own ships to it, if at all? Yep, you can use the normal shipyard module transfer services to get them to your fleet carrier. A fleet carrier has upkeep costs. Explorers often explore out on their own, and due to the vastness of the galaxy, it's unlikely they will ever get visitors to the carrier. The only way an explorer can generate profit far outside the bubble is with exploration data. Will carriers ever get a stellar cartographic service where players can sell their data? Without this, an explorer will be unable to fund their carrier's upkeep costs. And the answer to this, whilst Elite Dangerous's top traders might want to turn their fleet carrier into a trading post that turns a profit, we expect most fleet carriers to be fitted in ways that help players do what they enjoy in the game. For explorers who have accrued large sums of cash, they'll be able to take a fleet carrier and ferry it out to the remote regions of the galaxy and explore never-before-seen locations. Equally, traders could set their fleet carrier up as a trading post in a convenient location to turn a profit while they engage in other activities. So yeah, it seems that there's not going to be a stellar cartographics on the fleet carriers, and that you'll have to fund them yourself when you're out in deep space. So it's possible that there may be a lot more questions and answers during the fleet carrier live stream, as the developers will be present in chat, or were present in chat. This video was recorded before the live stream, so any details that come up I will pin in a comment below. Also, I will be making a follow-up video which will include a whole bunch of subjects focusing on the use of carriers, along with what I actually think about the carriers themselves, as well as all of this information. This video, after all, is already pretty long, so it makes sense for that to be in a self-contained video. Meanwhile though, do let me know your thoughts and feelings in the comments section below. I'd love to hear from you. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys and girls next time.